So thank you for coming. We got the coolest people at I.O. right here. Give yourselves a hand. Excellent, excellent. So thank you for joining me. We're going to dig into the world of persona. First, I want to see a show of hands. How many people brought a persona with them today? Great. It's a trick question. You all did. So, I better get the clicker. So we're going to talk about how persona can make your actions stand out, they can extend the brand, and they can increase usability. First, I'm Wally Brill. I'm the head of conversation design, advocacy, and education here at Google. And I've been teaching robots to talk for about 20 years. Actually, I've been teaching them to talk longer than that, but when I was a kid, they didn't talk back, which was kind of depressing. So this is a previous persona of mine. I even had hair. I just want to tell you folks, there is no distinct correlation between hair loss and designing personas. It's okay. All right, so years ago, when I had hair, I was a record producer. I was working mostly in the UK, and I had this idea, whether it was good or not, I'm not sure, but I wanted to create an opera that was interactive. I wanted you to be able to talk to the characters and change plots, like one of those choose-your-own-adventure stories, right? So what did I do? I decided I would find a technology that would work to do this. And in those days, we were thinking about things like CD-ROMs. I don't know if any of you remember CD-ROMs. Yeah, oh, I see a nod. I see a couple of nods. OK, good. So I went to the company that invented speech recognition, and I said to them, can you tell me about this stuff? And they said, well, you know about sound. Come in here. And they made me take a job there. And what happened was they sent me to see a man called James Giangola. I don't know if any of you know of him. He was one of the pioneers of conversational design for interactive speech. And he gave a talk at Stanford which completely blew my mind because it was about how you can speak naturally to a robot and it will speak naturally back to you. He wrote a book called Voice User Interface Design, which I recommend to anybody who's interested in this stuff. So moving along, this is our fabulous conversation design team that I recently joined at Google. Lots of happy faces there. Now, let's get down to it. What's a persona? How do we go about designing the perfect digital employee that's going to work for us and make us stand out? So what is a persona? It's the aspect of someone's character that's presented or perceived by others. It's your face that you show to the world. It's the who of who you are that you let people see, right? Now, in acting, people use personas all the time. In the 1930s, Leslie Howard and Norma Shearer did a version of Romeo and Juliet that was very successful. It was very widely liked. And it did well. Now, spin on to the 1990s. And here's Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes performing exactly the same content, but with very different personas. And it came across very much more contemporary, and it was a big success at the time, but very, very different from that original film. Now, everybody's got a unique persona. You get it when you're born. It changes with you as you develop and as you grow. And like I say, it's the who of who you are. It differentiates us one from another and makes us individuals. But now we live in the future, right? There are 500 million devices that have the Google Assistant on them. 500 million. Can I get an okay? Right, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of devices, too. So people have high expectations of what an intelligent assistant can do and how and where we can interact with it. And it's not just this thing that you talk to. Now we're talking about surfaces that the AI moves across effortlessly, from your Google Home to your TV, to your smartphone, to your car, to your watch. All these surfaces we have to take into consideration when we're designing persona. See, it's not just voice. It's also audio content like sound design. It's visual content now. It's interaction design. The interaction design actually has a lot to do with how your persona comes across. And it's even typography. Here's a quick example. This is a joke. I'm not holding up any hope for it being a great joke, but you can see that the punchline is really punched up because of typography. So we got to think about visual surfaces as well as audio situations. So let's pivot for a second and now talk about a voice-first world and understand why persona design is so important. So we're going to talk about a series of documents that you will make when you're designing a persona. And what they'll do is they'll help you keep the writing, the things that this system says, consistent and clear. Because otherwise it can appear fractured, and if the persona is fractured, people lose trust in the actual action. So in Wired for Speech, there is no such thing as no persona, by the way. That was my trick question I stuck in there. There we go. In Wired for Speech, Cliff Nass and Scott Brave said, when people hear any voice, they automatically and unconsciously assign a personality to it. This is a really important thing. Within a second, second and a half of hearing a voice, you create an image in your mind. You have an idea of who you're listening to. You know what I mean? So whenever you hear somebody calls you up that you don't know, you've got an idea of who they are. You have a sense of them. Because you know what? We can infer age. We can infer gender. We understand their educational level by the kind of things they say. We get register. Now, register is the social context. It's where this persona is in relation to me. Is it my boss? Is it my employee? Is it my peer? Who is this that I'm speaking with? We also get a sense of locale if they have an accent that's different from ours. We just don't recognize accents if we have the same one. So the other inferred traits we get are intelligence, trustworthiness, and likability. All these things come through in that first second and a half of hearing a voice. So it's really important that we get this right. We have to set ourselves up for success. Because now more than ever, the experience of the action is the brand to the consumer. What happens is every touch point matters. So billboard advertising, the web, radio, TV, absolutely, social media, absolutely every touch point carries the brand essence. And so it's vital that we get it right, because if we leave it to chance, you never know what you're going to get. So you don't just use anything. You've got to design your persona, because otherwise the results will be unpredictable. So how do we do it? How do we actually design one? This is where some of the fun stuff starts. We need to make that digital employee. And what I've done is I've suggested we take 2 airlines to map this out and to talk about how we do it. These are 2 airlines that obviously don't exist. One is Important Airlines. It's a national carrier. It's important. You can see their strapline. We're important and we will get you there. Right? Kind of traditional, kind of straight, you know. On the other hand, there's Millennial Airlines, and their strapline is, it's an awesome day to fly. Do you want to say that with me? It's an awesome day to fly. Once more, with feeling. It's an awesome day to fly. Great, thank you. So, the first step in designing a persona is we need to understand the brand. We need to interview the stakeholders. We need to talk to people in brand, in marketing, in customer experience, customer service. We want to look to see if there's a style guide. Now, the marketing people and the brand people will have already done this. They'll have distilled their brand down. But you want to go over it and understand it and really get it. So you're going to experience the product, too. You're going to get on the plane and go take a trip somewhere. You may visit the contact center, because those contact center agents are actually carrying the brand essence with them when they speak to customers over the phone. You're going to check out social media, and if there's a retail component, you'll go into a store, right? So let's talk about important for a second. Let's talk about my water for a second. Here it is. So Important Airlines brand is solid. They're confident. They're experts. They know what they're doing. They're reliable. They're utterly straightforward. There's no frills or anything. And they're safe. They got a great safety record. But you're not going to get wildly excited flying on Important, right? No surprises. Now, Millennial, on the other hand, where it's an awesome day to fly, thank you for helping me with that, the Millennial Airlines brand is bold, it's hip, it's fun, it's friendly, it's even exciting and delightful. It's a whole different kind of world. It's there to bring excitement of travel into your life. So those are two sets of brand essences, right? Now let's understand the customer. We need to know who's going to use this interaction. So we want to understand their context and their customer journey. We want to know who they are through their demographics. Where do they live? What do they like? How old are they? We want to understand the frequency of engagement, because that's going to have a lot to do with how verbose your prompts are. If they're frequent users, you can keep things really short. If they're infrequent users, you might want to give them a little more information. And we want to understand their expectations and needs. Now, one thing you should know is that people generally like to be mirrored. They like the idea of interacting with someone who at least relates to them in some ways. It's a preference, right? So the Important Airlines customer, mid-30s and up. These are business travelers. They're frequent flyers. They're road warriors. They're high value because those business class and first class seats are expensive. Whereas, on the other hand, our millennial customer is late teens to mid-30s. They're millennials. They're holiday makers. They're backpackers. They're young families going to Orlando, maybe. They're budget conscious, and they don't use the airline very much. They use it for holidays, once or twice a year. So, we know the brand, we know the customer. Now, what task are we going to do here? So what I've chosen is FLIFO, flight information. That's what's the status of my flight. Is it going to take off on time? Is it late? Has it been canceled? When is it expected? All that kind of good stuff, right? Which leads us to choosing the medium for the audio. Now, there's two ways to do this. You can use text-to-speech, TTS, I'm sure you all know what that is, versus custom recording, which is when you have an actor in front of a microphone recording prompts, right? Text-to-speech is the computer-generated voice. Custom recording is the human actor. So text-to-speech is infinitely scalable. It's really easy to use. It's really cheap, because what it's doing is it's reading written content. It handles dynamic content really well. So in our case, we've got an airline with a lot of changes going on. Duluth to Minneapolis, blah, blah, blah. All these things that are going and stuff changing on the fly. So we'll probably use text-to-speech there. Oh, can you go back one, please? There we go. The cons are limited voice availability. And occasionally you'll hear, I think Sundar mentioned this in the keynote, you hear prosody. And the prosody is the melody of speech. And occasionally, certainly in the old days, text-to-speech prosody wasn't great. I think you'll agree from what we heard this week that it's now phenomenally good. It's almost indistinguishable from human speech. So Time Out magazine in London decided they would use text-to-speech. They do listings of events, whatever is hip and happening. As you can see, Sanjay Vikal said, from secret tango lessons to breakfast raves, using the assistant to connect Time Out visitors to the coolest stuff to do. And they do. They created Tio, who's a millennial. She's hip and happening. She knows what's going on in London at any given time. Let me give you an example of what she sounds like. Okay, Google, talk to timeout.
Hey, you again. Got a quiet week ahead? Not anymore. When do you want to go out? Today, this week, or this weekend?
Who are you?
I'm Tio. No one knows the city like me because I've been discovering the brilliant and searching out the secret and extraordinary for a long time. If you want to know about food, art, culture, and nightlife, then I am your social companion. Try me. What do you want to do and when do you want to do it?
Where are you from?
In West Kensington, born and raised. On the estate was where I spent most of my days. Chillin' out maxin', relaxin' all hipster. Skatin' so much that I would get a blister. With a couple of mates, I'd go out on the town. Started seeing my bank balance go down. I got into debt and my mom started to shout. She said, you need to get a job at a place called Time Out. What else do you want to do?
Quit. That's pretty cool, right? It's pretty interesting. That's a pretty solid persona. And you get a sense of who she really is. Now, on the custom recording side, Headspace, which does meditation guidance, needed to use an actual real voice. Andy Puddicombe, who is the guy who started Headspace, and he does guided meditations. And I won't play one now because they chill me out so much I couldn't carry on with this talk. But they're really, really good. And the thing about custom recording is it's natural, it's expressive, it's comprehensible, and any voice in the world can be used, right? You can go and hire anybody to be the voice actor. Now, luckily for Headspace, they've got Andy. He's there all the time, because sometimes it can be expensive to record and maintain, and it relies on the availability of that artist. Andy goes there every day, so he's okay. So, let me play you an example of Headspace. Just a short one to hear what the voice sounds like.
Hi, my name's Andy, and welcome to Headspace. Using proven meditation and mindfulness techniques, I'll show you how to train your mind for a healthier, happier, more enjoyable life. To get started, try one of our short sessions. They're each under 2 minutes long and can help bring a little more mindfulness into your life. There are 3 options to choose from: wake up, take a moment, or unwind. Which one would you like to try? Okay.
Now, because we're doing flight information, we've chosen TTS, right? So, the fun part. How do we design this persona? How do we create that perfect representative, our digital employee? What are the steps we have to take? This is where we get creative, dig into that creative brain, and let's get going. So we go back to the airlines. We understand the brand, the customer, the task, and the medium. Now we're going to go and invent some people. We're going to write biographies for imaginary characters who might be a good fit for the job that we have for them. So who's that perfect representative? Who can it be? They got to make the action useful and usable. They've got to be comprehensible. They've got to be somebody that you'd really want to work with. The first step is register. We need to know what that social context is, right? We talked about this a little bit before. What's the relationship between me and that persona? Is it my peer, a really close friend of mine? Is it an employee, somebody that works for me and just does whatever I ask whenever I need it? Or is it an advisor, somebody who maybe knows more stuff than me, is at somewhat of a higher level, and that I'm taking information from? Now, when we do this for real, you'll probably want to create 3 different personas, and you may make them of 3 different registers. One's a peer, maybe 2 are employees. You'll play around with it a little bit. And you'll make the register different for them. Now have a look at this chart. This again comes from Clifford Nass. And you'll see that there's a vertical axis which is dominance and submissiveness versus friendliness and distance. This is kind of handy because when you're deciding what kind of persona you want and how it's going to relate to your customer, you can use this quite effectively to position them. Now, for important airlines, we decided we wanted a butler. Somebody like a butler who would relate to that demographic that we had. Remember, they're 35 and up. So we wanted somebody with some gravitas. I'll give no hints, but it's a British airline. And so we wanted a sort of concierge character that you could trust. So we have Terence Butler. He's 56. His occupation is butler. He comes from Bromley in Kent, which is a lovely suburb. Now, why do I care about his height and weight? Because it affects voice. It affects the largeness of the voice versus the smallness of the voice. So there's a lot in there in terms of size. He's solidly built. He's got thinning silver hair. That's just a shout out to people who are losing their hair. He lives where he works. He's single. And he went to the Ivor Spencer International School for Butler Administrators, which is a real place. Can you believe it? Phenomenal. Carrying on, he's a collector of rare wines. Why do we care? Because he's detail-oriented. His parents, Jack was a retired hotel manager, so he understands the hospitality industry, right? His mother was a retired nurse. Again, a caretaking profession. So he doesn't have any siblings. The reason we're interested in siblings is if you're the oldest of 4 kids, you may be a little better at being a caretaker than the youngest. And my family actually works that way. I'm the youngest, and I'm a little crazy, but my eldest brother is very straight ahead. What does he like to watch? He likes to watch Upstairs, Downstairs, Downton Abbey. He reads the Daily Telegraph and historical fiction by Hilary Mantel. He's also been 30 years in this job, so he really knows it. Now we flash back to the brand attributes of important and see how they match up. So important is solid, it's confident, it's expert, it's reliable, it's straightforward, it's safe, right? So how does Terence relate to that? Well, he's a butler. He's been a butler for a long time. He's confident, he's expert, and he's reliable. He's very straightforward, and he's worked for that family for over 30 years, so he's somebody you can trust. And the fact that he's an avid collector of rare wines tells you that he is detail-oriented, and he is an expert. Now, the next step is we're going to create, beyond this bio, we're going to create 2 more documents. We're going to create a monologue, which gives us a sense of who this character is. It's a paragraph, like a conversation that they're having with a friend in a bar or somewhere, where they're just telling them something that happened that day or that week. And it's really just to get us into the character a little more deeply. And if you're using custom recording with voice actors, it's a great way for them to dive back into the character if they've recorded that monologue once. Because on Monday, they may be in the studio recording for a sausage company. And on Tuesday, they may be doing a car commercial. But on Thursday, they're coming in to do your action. And you want them to be in your persona. So that's why these materials really help. The monologue really helps. So, let me give you an example of one.
I quite enjoy this occupation. It's extremely gratifying to know that one is indispensable. If Sir is stepping out of an evening, I shall have prepared Sir's dinner jacket and accessories. And I shall, of course, assist him in tying his bow tie. The work of a gentleman's gentleman is never done.
So he's pretty formal, right? His language is pretty formal. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a sample dialogue. Now, I know that all of you, whenever you decide to make an action or create an action, you start with conversation. You start with sample dialogues, right? You write the conversation out like a 2-part play. Here's the user, here's the system, here's the user, here's the system. And that really helps to tell you whether this conversation is natural sounding. So, here's Terence in an actual interaction the way he would be if he were working in the action. Okay, Google. Talk to important airlines.
Getting important airlines.
Good morning. You're through to Important Airlines. Am I speaking with Wally?
That's right.
Thank you. And do you require information regarding your flight to London today?
Yes. So, and do you require information regarding your flight to London today? Very formal language, very much in persona, very much locked into what we would expect for this character. Now let's move along and go to Millennial, which is, as we know, a very different airline indeed. So the Millennial Airlines persona is a young woman we call Helen Highwater. I'll say that again, Helen Highwater. She's 26 years old. She's a gate agent at San Francisco International. She comes from Mill Valley, California, another nice suburb. She's 5'5", 115 pounds. She's general physical description shows that she's kind of a hipster. She's got this wild asymmetrical haircut. She lives in a 3-bedroom apartment in the Mission with a couple of friends of hers, Jack, who's a software developer, interestingly enough, and Natalie, who's in med school. She's going out with Gary, who's a drummer in a band called the Ironic Three. Now, the reason they're ironic is because there are 5 members. She studied drama and English, which gives her a lot of help towards what she really wants to be, which is a stand-up comic. That's her dream. She spends every free minute working on her act. So her parents, Ron manages Mill Valley branch of the Bank of Marin, so she has a certain sense of responsibility. Lucy teaches English Lit at Mill Valley Middle School, so again, a love of language, right? These all kind of factor in. And you may think some of these things are not that necessary, but I promise you, if you get into a studio with a voice artist, they're going to go, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This gives me some depth. It gives me something to work with. She doesn't have any siblings. Her work history was that she was a bartender at Cobb's Comedy Club. She likes Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, Broad City, Dua Lipa, Amy Schumer, Amy Sedaris, all the good stuff. Now, go back to the brand. This brand is bold, hip, fun, happening. They're friendly, they're exciting, and they're delightful. I think she could be a really good match for this. So, let's see how she ties up for it. 26-year-old hipster. She's hip. She works as a gate agent in San Francisco International. She's done it for 3 years without missing a day. She's reliable. We can count on her. She's a people person. She gets along with everybody, even drummers. That makes her friendly and fun. And her dream is to make a living as a stand-up. Now, if you're going to be a stand-up, you better be bold, you better be friendly, you better be fun, and please be delightful. So she's got a monologue. Let's have a listen.
I use everything. And believe me, when you deal with the passengers, there's endless amounts of material, like the woman who was going to Boston but her luggage was on its way to Austin, or the parents off on holiday who each expected the other one to bring the kids to the airport. Then there's the guy who thinks he deserves an upgrade because he was in some obscure rock band from 20 years ago or something. Let me tell you, it's great training for a stand-up, and I get paid for it. And if I can deal with them, there isn't a heckler in the world who can bother me.
So, pretty consistent. She is who she is. We get a sense of her through the monologue. Now let's see what she would be like in a sample dialogue, actually doing the job. Okay, Google. Talk to Millennial Airlines.
Getting Millennial Airlines. Millennial Airlines. It's an awesome day to fly. Is this Wally?
Yep,
Great. Do you want info about your flight to London today?
that's right. So, completely different kind of language. Do you want info? It's an awesome day to fly. Very different than our last persona, Terrence, because these brands are so different, and we need to be consistent to the brand. Okay? So as you can see, it makes a difference, right? So in terms of positioning these guys, where do we think they would fit on this chart? Well, let's start with Terrence. He's kind of submissive. He's introverted. He just does what he's told. He does the job. He does it very, very well, but he does the job. He's not overly friendly. He's not distant. He's just kind of in that middle place somewhere. And what about Helen? She's super friendly. She's an extrovert to the extreme. And she's a lot of fun. So she belongs right there, over on the right. The next step, which we're not going to dive into too deeply right now, is what we call user testing. Sometimes you do what's called Wizard of Oz testing. And you can do this effectively with dialogue flow by actually mocking up quickly the main paths of your interactions and then playing them for people. Have people work through them and get a sense of how usable it is and how much that persona matches their ingoing expectations. So, we got a few takeaways for you. First, review the actions you've already made. And they're wonderful, I know. But is the persona clearly defined? Do you feel confident that the persona is well imagined and well created? Is it representative of the brand, the user, and the task? Does it work right? Number two, define that persona. You're going to follow the process, learn about the brand, know the user, know the task, and define appropriate characters, which is, for me, the fun part. And then bring it to life. Write these monologues, write these sample dialogues, and make recordings of them. Because you can only tell about conversational voice user interface by listening to it. If you read it on the page, it won't have the same effect at all. And if you've got stakeholders that you're trying to talk to about what you're doing and to explain this is the right thing, they've got to hear it. You don't want to give them anything with writing on it. Just say, close your eyes, listen to this. And then test. Test your action with real customers, low-fidelity prototypes, dialogue flow, however. But you want to derive some data and some proof points for your stakeholders to say, customers, users really felt this was right for our brand. And that gives you success, I hope. I'm sure. And it will be wonderful. And you'll make beautiful personas. And so with that, I'm going to ask you to give us some feedback. You all know the drill. And finally, here are a couple of resources that are really quite wonderful. Developers.google.com, google.com/io. Kathy Pearl, who just recently joined our team, wrote a wonderful book called Designing Voice User Interfaces, which I recommend highly. Clifford Nass's book, Wired for Speech, I also recommend highly. He talks about persona at great length. And James Giangola's Voice User Interface Design is a really, really important baseline book. This kicked off a whole generation of VUI designers. So with that, thank you very, very much for coming, and have a wonderful rest of I.O.